The children had started to laugh again. That was the first sign something real had shifted. Their play was still quiet, their movement still hesitant. But when they thought no one was listening, their giggles carried to the narrow hallways of the alien dwelling. He never intruded. He simply listened, fixing a torn sleeve or sharpening the tools they all now used together. The widow's eyes lingered more now, not with suspicion, but calculation, measuring his fit into a life she had never expected to rebuild. The morning he found the carving, he almost threw it away. A chunk of dark alien wood, crudely shaped, edges jagged. He turned in his palm, realized it was meant to be him, rough likeness, human face, holding hands with two small, long-limbed children. A third figure stood to the side, half-carved. The widow watched him find it, but said nothing. He didn't thank her. She didn't claim credit. That day, when one of the children fell from a low tree branch and bled blue onto the moss, he didn't hesitate. He caught the screaming child, wrapped the wound, barked orders in a language they understood. The elder child stood between them, wide-eyed, and whispered, "You sound like Father did." The widow flinched at the words. The child didn't apologize. That night, they ate together. The food had changed, not just the ingredients, but the method. They combined the human way of searing and the alien technique of co-fermenting certain roots. It was a small change, but the kind born of intention, not accident. She handed him the plate without a word, their hands brushing longer than necessary. There was no flirtation, only gravity. A transmission arrived during the storm. Garbled at first, then clear. A local patrol had picked up heat traces near the edge of the woods. Too uniformed to be wildlife. Possible mercenaries. Possible bounty hunters. The humans weren't well-liked in these parts. The war might have ended on paper, but revenge needed no declaration. The widow stiffened, her voice low. "They'll blame you. They'll call this house trader's ground." He locked the door out of instinct. She unlocked it out of defiance. "We do not cower. If they come, we speak with blood or truth." He didn't like either option. He gathered the children, taught them where to hide, what signals to listen for. He showed the eldest how to hold a blade, though her hands trembled. He asked no permission from the widow. She gave none. It was simply what needed to be done. They didn't sleep that night. Even the wind seemed to hush. The forest stood still, as if waiting to see who would bleed first. The next day they arrived. 3 figures, armored in patchwork tech, eyes behind rebreather masks. Not locals, not government. Hired men, professionals. The way they moved, tight formation, minimal words. One raised a weapon the moment he stepped outside. He raised nothing. He only stood, hands at his sides, between them and the house. They demanded the alien, not the widow, her, the child, the youngest, a target of interest for her unusual genetic markers, enhanced reflexes, high cognition potential, military-grade breeding stock. One joked. They had the data. They even had papers. Stamped. Legal. He didn't move. He said only, "No." The first merc laughed. Said, "We're not here for your permission, monkey." The shot would have taken him through the heart. But the widow had moved faster. A scream in her language, a flash of bone-colored blade, and the first merc dropped, throat spilling steam and blood. The second raised a plasma spike. The eldest child tackled him. She wasn't strong, but she was precise. Blade through the gap in his thigh armor. Screams. Another shot. The widow stumbled. He caught the weapon. Fired once. Twice. No hesitation. No mercy. When the third went down, twitching, it was over. No one spoke for a long time. The children stared. The widow clutched her side, breathing hard. He moved to her, touched the wound, pressed his palm flat to stop the bleeding. Her hand gripped his wrist, not to push him away, but to hold him there. Later, the elders came. They had seen the flames. They had questions. They had accusations. He didn't wait for the widow to answer. He stood before them, body still bloodstained, and said, "Your law says I am nothing, that I have no place here. But when they came to take your children, I stood. I bled. I killed. I protected. If that makes me a traitor in your eyes, say it now, and I will leave." The silence was long. One elder finally spoke. "You are not one of us, but you are not one of us. The distinction must change." The widow said nothing, but her eyes met the elder's. Something passed between them. The bodies were burned that night, without ceremony. The children didn't cry. The youngest slept in his arms for the first time. The eldest cleaned the blade she had used, careful and methodical. That evening, the widow came to him, not with a plea, but a statement. They will come again. Not these. Others. Stronger, smarter, with better words, and worse intentions. You can still leave. He said, "I won't." She nodded once, not grateful, not relieved, just sure. She leaned close, voice low. "You are not their father. Not yet, but you are no longer a stranger to this house. If you stay as one of us, not as outsider, not as pity." He said nothing. She stepped away. He did not. That night, the children placed their sleeping mats closer to his. That night, the wind sang again to the trees. But it sounded different now, like a warning, or a promise. The next week was quiet, but the quiet wasn't peace. It was a silence of people bracing for the next blow. He could feel in the way the children paused before entering rooms, how the eldest scanned the tree line before drawing water. The widow no longer kept her weapons sheathed inside the home. They were placed openly now, not as a threat, but as a promise. Anyone who entered uninvited would not leave unpunished. He spent the mornings rebuilding the perimeter defenses. The old sense array had been a relic when he arrived, but now it hummed with new life, patched together from mercenary tech and buried supply crates. He dug trenches, reinforced walls, taught the children how to signal without sound. Every movement had a purpose. Every day had a lesson. The youngest, once quiet and shy, now asked him how to aim a pulse rifle. He didn't give her one. Not yet. The widow trained beside him. She spoke little, but her movements were precise, efficient. She didn't ask what he had done before he came here, but she watched him like she already knew. When he corrected the children's stances or shifted their grips, she didn't interfere. They were learning something she could not teach, how humans prepare for the worst. She began to ask questions, not personal, but pointed. Human tactics, human politics, human mistakes. He answered directly. He told her about Earth's wars, the way bureaucracy turned soldiers into numbers and survivors into shadows. He didn't excuse it. He didn't glorify it. He just told the truth. She listened. The elders summoned them again. This time, in public, a gathering in a hollowed-out meeting stone, the village's oldest structure, scarred by war and time. Dozens of eyes watched as the widow stepped forward, her posture proud, unyielding. He stood beside her, saying nothing, letting her speak for both. They questioned his role, not his violence, his presence. Why a human? Why now? Was it desperation, defiance, or something else? The widow answered with neither emotion nor apology. He defends what is mine, what was once ours, and what may yet be ours again. He teaches our children survival, strength, and unity. He does not ask to belong. He acts as if he already does. That is worth more than bloodline or tradition. An elder snarled, "He does not share our blood." She replied, "Nor do we share his past. Yet here we are." There was no consensus. The council deferred judgment, as they often did, to time. On the walk back, he didn't ask if she regretted it. She didn't say if she feared reprisal. But that night, when she sat beside him outside the dwelling and poured him her family's ceremonial drink, a privilege not even given to her dead mate, he understood. Something had changed. They began to patrol together. The forest became their shared ground. Where once there had been silence, now they spoke between trees, about loss, duty, and fear. He lured her children's names were chosen by meaning, not lineage. Each name a burden and a beacon. She asked if humans named their children the same. He told her sometimes, but often not. Sometimes we named them after the dead, sometimes after hope. She looked at him a long time after that. The children began to mimic them, not just their training, but their presence. They sat between them now during meals. The youngest once asked, "Do humans and our kind have words for family that do not mean the same thing?" He nodded. She asked, "Which word fits us now?" He had no answer. One morning, a package arrived. Not from locals. A drone, unmarked, but clearly from orbit. It dropped a seal case, embedded with a biometric lock keyed to human DNA. He opened it carefully. Inside was a message from a name he hadn't heard in years. A commanding officer. Old war files. Intel. A simple offer. "We've seen your position. We need someone local. Your attachment could be useful. Deliver intel on the alien factions. In exchange, full pardon, transport home, and reinstatement." He burned the message. The widow watched the fire from a distance, eyes unreadable. She didn't ask what he had received. She only said, "Old roots rot slow, but some trees burn easier than others." He didn't respond. 2 days later, scouts spotted movement again. Not mercenaries. Not outsiders. Government soldiers. Alien, local, uniformed. Too polished, too controlled. They approached slowly. No weapons drawn. A flag of parley raised. The widow met them outside the dwelling, this time with him by her side, and the children hidden in the shadows. The officer was polite, efficient, soft-spoken. "We've received reports of unauthorized cohabitation. A human military background, living with a war widow. This is not illegal, but it is sensitive." The widow's voice was like stone. "Is there a law broken?" "No." "Then leave." The officer's smile didn't reach his eyes. "We are not enemies, but you know how quickly whispers become commands. We are here for the children's safety. You are here for control." The officer's smile faded. If the war reignites, such arrangements may be seen as provocations. He stepped forward. "Then don't start another war." The officer studied him, then nodded once, as if filing away a name, a face, a risk. "We will monitor the situation." They left without violence. But the message had been clear. Later, as they worked side by side reinforcing the comm shelter, she said, "You are a point of friction, but so am I. That makes us dangerous." He looked at her. "You're not afraid of dangerous." She looked back. "No, but I am tired of burying those who are." That night, she didn't sit beside him. She stood over him, eyes hard, jaw tight. "If you stay, truly stay, you will be marked. Not as an ally, not as a refugee, but as family. That cannot be undone." He stood slowly. "Then mark me." She reached forward, took a ceremonial blade, and sliced the air between them. Not a threat, but a ritual, a shared act. She pressed the hilt into his hand. "Then stand when they come, and do not falter." He didn't.